Hi, I'm CB, and this time I'm going to talk about how to take a journaling box like I have here on the screen and do something a little bit different with it other than just have our plain flat journaling. We're going to sort of build on the other tutorial that I had just finished about journaling strips and make it look like we've taken some of this and put little journaling strips over some of the words to highlight it. I got the idea of doing this. I was just looking through a regular scrapbooking magazine, and they were talking about how to correct mistakes in journaling on a layout. And this was one of the ideas, was to take some of the paper that you used for the journaling box and just cut a little strip of it out and put it on, write your new word on there, and then stick it on top of the old words, and maybe even do that with some other words just to make it have that sort of, oh, I meant to do that look, and to highlight words. So that's what we're going to do here. After this long explanation I've given now of what we're going to do, let's go ahead and get started. And I have my journaling box and some text on top of it, and this is my Sparkle Princess pack, the blue set, the paper pack. And let's get started. I've also went ahead and added a drop shadow and some beveling to the box itself. But what I need to do now is I want to go ahead and keep these separate in case I do need to go back and make some changes to the journaling. But I want to have a copy of this to work with where the text layer is merged with this journaling box. So I'm going to copy each layer. I'm going to hit Control and J or Command and J once on the text layer and go down once to the journaling box layer and once on that. Then I'll go ahead and drag this text layer down here so that it's sitting like that, and then I would go to these top two layers, top the text, and then click it once, hold my Shift key down and click on this layer, then right click and choose Merge Layers. I think it's being cut off the screen a little bit, but now I'll turn these bottom two layers off, and I have, as you can see, they're one layer with the text sitting on top. One other thing I should mention is that you'll also, when you're typing out your text, you'll want to be very careful that you have enough space between your words for this. And what I actually did is I typed and then added an extra space, hit the space bar twice between each one instead of just once, so that there's a good gap in between the words. So now that I have the basic setup ready to go on this, we're going to go ahead and do kind of building on the last tutorial that I had, where we're going to make that little word strip template. So I need a new layer here at the top, and I'm going to take my rectangle marquee tool and go ahead and draw over the first word that I want, which in this case I'll choose the word happy. Make sure it covers the whole word, and then I'll just hit Alt and backspace, or Alt and backspace, which would be Option Delete on a Mac. And then I'll deselect with Control and D, which again would be Command and D. Now let's go in and we're going to skew this just like we did before, so that it's not a perfect little box here. I'm going to edit and transform skew, which, as I said, this is CS4, Photoshop CS4. If you're using a version of Photoshop Elements, I think skew is not quite under a transform menu. I think you're just going to have to look around, maybe in the edit menu, but it's somewhere in there. I can't quite remember off the top of my head. And then I'll just pull a corner down and up or something, just to get something a little bit different. And then if there's a checkbox there, you'd hit that, or in my case I'll just jump off and hit apply here. So now again, the same way we did last time, I'm going to hold my Control key down, Command key on the Mac, and click on this thumbnail of this template, and then go down to my now merged journaling layer here, click on that once, hit Control and J or Command and J on the Mac, and then I'll turn my template layer off here for a minute. Now nothing really looks different at this point. It's especially hard to see on the layer, but what I've got is that template had cut out the word happy. And the first thing I like to do after I do that, to start building on getting this to look like it's a whole separate word strip, is I'm going to turn the lightness of this layer down just a little bit. So if I hit the Control and then the U key, which again would be Command and U, that brings up the hue and saturation box, And I'll just turn the lightness slider down to about no more than -5, -4. That looks good. And you can probably just barely see it on the screen over here, what we've got, but that you can now start to see it's just a little shade darker than the rest of it. And I'll click OK on that. Now, if I add a layer style, the drop shadow, for instance, which is, I believe, the effects palette, and you'll choose layer styles in the effects palette of elements. And in this case, in CS4 here, I'll just double click in the empty space of the layer, which brings up the layer styles pane, and I'll just go ahead and go with the default one for now and click OK. So now if I click off, you can see it really does have that cutout look. But one more thing, and I'm going to scroll in here so you can see why I need to do this final step. Look how the pattern is just perfectly aligned. I don't like that. That does not scream, hey, this was a cutout strip from something else. So I might nudge it over a little bit here. I just clicked on it and use my arrow key to nudge it. I might rotate it some, maybe even nudge it back. I might even go here and grab one of these handles and hold my shift key down and even shrink it down a little bit, and maybe move it back again. Just find something that works for you, rotate it so that it's not lining up like that, and then I'd hit apply. And then of course you probably also want to make sure, see if I turn the visibility of this layer off, you see we've still got the original layer below it. So you might just want to make sure that some of that original journaling isn't peeking through, unless that's the look you're going for. Now I would go through and I would pick a few more words probably in this to highlight, and all you have to do really is take this template, move it over to your next word, and then I probably would even go through and take edit, transform, and skew and move this again. Again, you don't want to have the exact same shape of the cutout, and so play with that a little bit more until you're happy with that, and maybe even go in, edit, and transform and flip it a direction so that again it's not quite the same, or turn it a little bit, things like that. Play with it so that it's a little bit different, and then go ahead, and the steps are exactly the same. You would hold Control or Command on the thumbnail, click, go down to this full flat journaling layer, I've invented a word, layer, and jump it out, and then do that with the next words that you go, and just go through your layout, and eventually you will have something. And I have an example of that I finished here earlier. Oops, there you go. And so I think that's a pretty nice look. Like I said, it has that look of I've cut out some extra words and put them on there, but really you didn't have to go do any more cutting from another piece of paper. It just has a nice paper scrapped look to it. I think it's just a little bit more interesting than just having the journaling just written on there. It's a way to highlight some words and add some interest. I'm CB. I hope you found this tutorial helpful. Thanks for watching.